The 7-star Cinderace Tera raid event is back. If you missed out on this event the first time around, don't worry because you're in luck. You'll get a second chance starting from January 13th to the 15th. And today I'm going to bring you guys a few Pokemon builds that could potentially help you out and finally catching that Cinderace. Let's go. What's up guys, Maz here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the details of this event. So the Cinderace does have perfect stats, 31 IVs. It's gonna have its hidden ability, Libero. Once you catch it, it is gonna come with the Mightiest mark. Keep in mind, you are only gonna be able to get one of these per save file. Once you catch it, you are still gonna be able to participate in these events. You just won't be able to catch it again. You'll still have an incentive to beat it just so you can get those really good rewards. Also in this event, we'll be able to challenge Gengar and Gyarados in up to 5-star raids. And just as a quick reminder, in order to participate in this event, you do need to beat the game and unlock 6-star Tera raid dens. Although this is a 7-star, you're not going to be able to participate unless the 6 stars are unlocked. So now that all of that's out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at a few of these Pokemon builds, shall we? So if you guys have seen my last couple videos, you know that I had a lot of success with the Azumarill belly drum build. This one was really good. It carries me for almost every type of Tera raid den that I do. It's just so powerful. Once you get that belly drum off, you use play rough and you basically win. More or less. Now the thing is, I've tried to use this build with the Cinderace and it is very different from the Charizard one. I've tried several times and I did not find success soloing like I did with the Charizard raid. So Azumarill is probably not going to be your best bet for this raid, unfortunately. Then we have the Dachsbun build. This is another video that I made. This one, I'll tell you what, it's very defensive. I tried soloing with Dachsbun. Surviving Cinderace was not a problem with this build. This is more so a build that maybe would be better off as more of a supporter if you're doing online raids with either friends or random people. It's just not strong enough. You're not going to be able to solo with this thing. At least I haven't been able to personally. It just doesn't pack enough punch, but its survivability is very high. All right, now let's get into the 3 builds that we're going to be talking about today, starting off with Armarouge. So I find that with a lot of these Tera raid dens, Shell Bell happens to be one of the better, more popular items, and the reason being these Tera raid Pokemon have crazy large amounts of HP. So I find that when we're doing damage to these Pokemon, we're going to end up getting a lot of health back. The more damage that we do, the more health we'll be getting back. Alternatively, if you don't want to use a Shell Bell, you can also use Life Orb. That is another very solid strategy, going to increase the damage that you'll be doing. If you want to find a Life Orb, you can actually find one in Casaroya Lake. All you need to do is head to this island right here and you're going to find it right on this little area here. So this is the move set. We have Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Acid Spray, and Stored Power. So the whole idea with this move set is you want to try and get all these stat boosts off right away. So we start with using 3 Iron Defenses so that way we can max our defense, and then we move on to using Calm Minds. Now the hope is you can max out your special attack, and that is 6 Calm Minds. So Acid Spray is used to help drop Cinderace's special defense by 2 stages, so that's going to help us hit even harder. But the main thing that we're looking at is Stored Power. So it starts off with a base 20 power, but it gains an additional 20 power for every stat boost that you receive. So whenever we use an Iron Defense, we're going to be getting plus 40 power because you're getting 2 stage increases. If we're using Iron Defense 3 times, that's 6 stat raises, which means that is going to take our stored power to over 100 base power. So the same thing with Calm Mind. Every Calm Mind that we use will also be getting an additional 20 base power. So once we have all these stat boosts and all these increases, stored power should allow us to knock out the Cinderace within 2 to 3 hits. In terms of the EVs, I've maxed out HP and special attack, and I put the additional 6 EVs into defense. And then for the nature, I put Modest. Okay, now with Slowbro, it is going to be very similar to Armarouge. Shell Bell happens to be my personal favorite item when it comes to these Tera raid dens, but you can also use a terrain extender, you can use Twisted Spoon just to give you an extra bonus to your psychic type attacks. You could definitely do that too. In terms of the move sets, so I have Psychic Terrain, Nasty Plot, Stored power and slack off. Honestly, you could also use Iron Defense. Iron Defense would also be a very solid strategy. Like with Armarouge, the more boosts you have, it's going to only increase the damage of stored power. The main thing that you want to know with this build is that we're trying to get as many stat boosts as possible. In terms of the EVs, I maxed out HP, I maxed out special attack, and I put the rest of the EVs into defense. I also made a modest nature. All right, and lastly, we have Espathra. Espathra is a little bit different in terms of the build. So I would suggest for this one here, Shell Bell is probably the best item to use. You're going to be attacking a little bit more with this thing. In terms of the move set, so we have Feather Dance, Psychic Terrain, Lumina Crash, and Stored Power. So Feather Dance, what we'll do is we set that up first, so that way the Cinderace's attack is lowered by 2 whole stages. So that's already going to help us survive a little bit more. We can then set up the Psychic Terrain just to boost your Psychic type attacks, at which point we'll use Lumina Crash. Not only are we going to be doing damage with this, but every time we hit it, we're also lowering Cinderace's special defense stat. Every time you hit that Cinderace, you're going to be doing more and more damage every single time. Not to mention our ace in the hole, we have Stored Power. What's special about this build here, if we pair that with Espathra's ability Opportunist, if an opponent's stat is boosted, the Pokemon seizes the opportunity to boost the same stat for itself. Cinderace is going to be using Bulk Up several times throughout the battle. Every time it uses Bulk Up, it's going to increase its attack and defense by 1 stage. Because we have Opportunist, Espathra is also going to be getting those benefits as well, which is great. Cinderace uses Bulk Up, we're going to be getting an extra 40 base power to our stored power. So I would focus on just using Lumina Crash as much as possible. Usually after about 3 bulk ups from Cinderace, that's typically when I would start using stored power. In terms of the EVs, we have maxed out HP, maxed out defense, and I put the rest of the 6 EVs into special attack. Also, I made this one a bold nature. That way we can get an extra bonus to our defense stat. Also, real quick, I would highly suggest going to Montenerva to do hyper training. If you have the bottle caps, try and focus on HP, defense, and special attack as your main stats. If you don't have a lot of bottle caps for everything else, just try and focus on those 3 stats. Okay, so now that we've gone through all the builds, let's go ahead and take on the Cinderace and see what kind of damage we can do here. Now, the first thing that you guys need to know is when you start this raid, Cinderace is going to use Bulk Up immediately before anyone even gets to attack. So because it uses Bulk Up right away, it's important that we use some sort of defensive move to keep ourselves alive. It's automatically going to be starting the battle with a boost to both its attack and defense. It makes it very dangerous right from the start. Now, going into this battle here, this was not my first attempt with Slowbro. I did tweak a couple things, and instead of Slack Off, I decided to go with Iron Defense instead and just change up the strategy a little bit here. So I did get an Arcanine, I got Intimidate, which is fantastic. So my plan going into this is I wanted to start off with Iron Defense. You're trying to build up your survivability, so we start by using 3 Iron Defenses to maximize our defense. And you guys can already see Acrobatics, he's trying to hurt me, and it's honestly not doing much at all. Plus I'm also getting chip healing from Arboliva's Seed Sower. At this point, now it's time to maximize our special attack. Just as we use 3 Iron Defenses, we also need to use 3 Nasty Plots as well. Both my attack and my defenses are now officially maxed. I'm not going to be using Psychic Terrain just because of Seed Sower. So at this point, we're ready to go. Let's just go straight for the stored power. I hit the stored power. It does a crazy amount of damage before Cinderace can even put up a shield. After I hit this thing for more than half its health in 1 shot, the match is already won at this point. There's nothing this thing can do. Cinderace's attacks are doing next to nothing at this point. I go for another stored power, another good little chunk. Shell Bell continues to heal me up, and we go for the 3rd and final stored power, and this thing is done. Game over. I took this thing out in 3 hits, so you guys can see just how powerful this build is if used correctly. This is the easiest attempt I've made with any of these builds by far. All right, so that's 1 build down. Let's go ahead and move on to Espathra. Now, when it comes to using Espathra, it may not be as easy as using Slowbro. It is still a very viable option. So the main thing that you guys guys need to know, Espathra's ability Opportunist is what really helps carry this Pokemon for this Tera raid. Because we know that Cinderace will be using bulk up several times, we're going to be getting the same boosts each time he does it. So we get lucky again. Not only do we get Arboliva, but we also end up getting Tauros with Intimidate. Now you guys see that Cinderace uses bulk up here. Our Opportunist ability activates, and now we also start the battle with an attack and defense raise. So that's the first of many that we'll end up getting. So the first thing that I decide to do is we need to go for a Feather Dance. I did get a little bit lucky. Cinderace, he missed the Pyro Ball. So we get the Feather Dance off, and you guys can see it harshly lowers Cinderace's attack. So that's by 2 stages. We do this to increase her survivability chances, similar to Iron Defense with Slowbro, except we're lowering Cinderace's attack instead. If you don't have an Intimidate NPC on your team, you may want to end up using Feather Dance a second time. So after we go for Feather Dance, I decide to go for the Lumina Crash right away. We do end up getting burned here, but we're still able to manage because of our healing with Arboliva's Seed Sower and also the Shell Bell. So Cinderace uses another bulk up, which means we get another Opportunist boost to both our attack and defense. So I'm going for a second Lumina Crash here just to continue to get some damage off, chip away at Cinderace's health while also getting a little bit of healing and continuing to lower Cinderace's special defense. So he pops the shield. Cinderace uses a third bulk up, which means our defense is even higher. We're getting another 2 boosts. So at this point, we've received 6 different stat raises, and I decide that now is a good time to start using stored power. So I terrestrialize Espathra. I hit him with stored power after 6 boosts, and it does a pretty good chunk. So I was going to go for another stored power, but he nullified our stat changes, which unfortunately means that we lose all of our stat boosts. So at this point here, I could have gone for another Feather Dance, but I saw that he was already at more than half health, so I just decided to go for more damage at this point. I wanted to continue to lower his special defense and continue to get some chip healing with the Shell Bell. But if you guys notice, now he's hitting us a little bit harder because we don't have all those boosts anymore. Things are starting to get a little bit more dangerous. It's becoming a little bit of a tug of war between damaging Cinderace, but also trying to get health back. So this is where honestly Shell Bell really comes in handy, because if we don't have Shell Bell at this point, Espathra would have been defeated and we likely would have lost the battle. So Cinderace uses bulk up, our Opportunist kicks in again, thankfully. If we didn't get that defense boost, we probably would have died to the high jump kick. I'm going for another Lumina Crash just because it's my best option. I didn't receive enough boosts to use stored power, and we get really close to dying here, but thankfully Seed Sower and Shell Bell save us. Then we get really lucky and Cinderace misses that Pyro Ball, and I honestly, I don't know if I would have survived that or not. The shield is now broken, and at this point we just need to use one more move and we win, and that's it. Game over. So this one was a little bit harder. It did take me a couple of tries. Let's move on to the final build of today's video, Armarouge. Now, I did get pretty lucky here. I did get both a Tauros and a Staraptor. Both have Intimidate, which means I was able to get Cinderace's attack cut twice. So as you guys can see, Acrobatics did not much at all. So the first thing that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my 3 Iron Defenses up. So I already got one off. We got a second one going here, and already, you know, I'm tanking these hits pretty easily now. I also got pretty lucky with Umbreon using Thunder Wave. If you have someone that could do status conditions, that's great. So I used all 3 Iron Defenses, so now I'm moving on to Calm Mind. My goal here is I'm just trying to stat raise and boost as much as possible before I go in with the stored power. I'm trying to get 6 Calm Minds to maximize my special attack. Ideally, you want to max out your special attack. You want to try and get all 6 Calm Minds off. If you can't, that's okay. If you feel like your Pokemon's close to fainting, hopefully you got enough boosts so you can go straight to just using the stored power. So at this point here, I'm tanking all the hits. They're nothing. Another thing to note is every time the Staraptor and the Tauros faint, when they come back to life, their Intimidate is going to go off again on the Cinderace. So it's going to just continuously cut Cinderace's attack over and over again to the point where he could barely do anything. So you guys could see now, so he popped his shield. So my thought process now is I'm trying to get an acid spray out now that I got all the boosts and go in for the kill. So I get the acid spray off. I'm finally ready to defeat this thing. And what does he do? he nullifies the stat changes. So that is really annoying. Be wary of that. Once the timer gets to a certain point, Cinderace will nullify the stat changes, and at that point you need to do all the boosts and everything all over again. So be aware of that. He only does that once in the battle, so you don't need to worry about it happening a second time, thankfully. So at this point here, I think I used the last Calm Mind. I used Stored Power, and it takes out a massive chunk of his health, and that's with the shield too. You guys can see that Shell Bell did some beautiful work, and I basically got my entire health back. That's why Shell Bell I think is so important. It's very helpful. He uses acrobatics, doesn't even matter. I go for the acid spray just to basically confirm the kill at this point. He does hang on with a little bit of health left. One last Stored Power, and that's game. Alright, now that we've gone through the builds, let's take a look at our Cinderace, and I'll give you guys my final thoughts. Overall, I would probably say that Slowbro was the easiest. All these builds, they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. I spent a long time trying to record and solo with each of these builds here. It did take some time, but I'm happy that I finally found success with them. This event is much harder than the Charizard one, that's for sure. So once you finally defeat and catch your Cinderace, these are the moves. With its hidden ability Libero. It also has the Mightiest mark. A mark for a Pokemon caught in a 7-star Tera raid battle. There you have it. We got ourselves the Cinderace. 3 very strong builds that have the potential to solo. So if you don't have access to playing with people online, then at least you have these 3 builds that you can definitely try out. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for me. If you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like and hit that subscribe button as well. I would really appreciate it. We reached over 3,000 subscribers, and I just wanted to say thank you all so much for the support. It's kind of blowing my mind, and I'm just very appreciative for each and every one of you, and I can't wait to make more content for you guys in the future. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys in the next video. All the best, guys. Have a good one.